Thank you, Gordon. I'll be brief, ladies and gentlemen, to ensure the program runs smoothly. As chair of the Perth US Asia Centre, it's my pleasure to welcome the Minister, to Bill Johnston today, to also, on behalf of the Western Australian Government, who are supporters of the Perth US Asia, as with the Federal Government. The establishment of the Perth US Asia Centre at the University of Western Australia, we focused on putting a think tank research capability on the west coast of the Australian shoreline. That has complemented the United States Study Centre at Sydney University that focuses on, more particularly, the US-Australian alliance and relationships. The Perth US Asia Centre has its focus on the Indo-Pacific, capably led by Gordon Flake, who's done an outstanding job since its establishment, culminating in today's event, as the Governor has indicated, a really substantive policy being put forward by the Perth US Asia Centre. Minister, we appreciate the support the Western Australian Government has given us to enable us to continue the work, very valuable work, that the Perth US Asia Centre does. Would you please welcome Minister Bill Johnston.
Well, thank you very much, John, for your introduction, and I want to thank the organisers and particularly Gordon Flake for putting on such a high-quality conference. I also begin by acknowledging that we meet on the traditional lands of the Noongar people, pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I particularly thank Richard Wally for his very warm welcome. I also want to acknowledge the Governor of Western Australia, the Honourable Kim Beazley, and like Gordon, acknowledge that there's very little to be said after such an impressive opening set of remarks. I acknowledge all other VIPs in the room, and last year I was fortunate to go to South Africa for Mining Indaba, and I learned an African terminology, which is all protocols observed, so that you can just assume that I've acknowledged everybody that's important in the room without having to list out the incredible extent of the talent that's arrived here today, arranged by the Perth US Asia Centre. And so you can see that this is really a high quality conference that's covering an important issue with informed speakers, and it's in the correct location. There's nowhere else in the world, I'd argue, that is more important to consider critical minerals and rare earths than here in Western Australia, because we all know that there's a global technological revolution going on now, whether it's electric vehicles, renewable energy, energy storage, the fourth industrial revolution, the application of robots. They all require critical minerals and rare earths. And here in Western Australia, we are a globally significant supplier of all those materials. And we want to be a good partner for all nations, and a good ethical supply source for business across the world. We are famous as a supplier of raw materials, and I make the point that we do that at globally competitive prices. And the reason we're able to do that at globally competitive prices is because we're good at applying technology to solve problems. And so I want to just quickly address the false narrative of the cost of production in Western Australia. It's probably true that the capital cost of developing a project in Western Australia might be higher than in some other locations. However, the cost of production is going to be no higher, because we're able to apply technology to keep our costs down, and we've seen that in the supply of raw materials as well as in the supply of processed materials as well. And so that's how come we're able to now move further down the value stream for critical minerals and rare earths. And we're becoming a globally significant supplier of lithium hydroxide, with investments from Tianqi, Albemarle and Covalent Lithium, which is a partnership between Chile's SQM and our West Australian Wesfarmers. We're noticing that BHP Nickel West is moving further down the value chain for the supply of nickel and cobalt, going past battery-grade nickel metal to nickel sulphate and cobalt sulphate. There's other projects for processing of high-purity alumina, graphite, manganese sulphate, technical grade vanadium and rare earths, all here in Western Australia, all providing cost competitive output for the global industry. And already we have over 15,000 people working in our battery industry and rare earth supply chain. And the next wave of investment that we're focusing on is to support investment into the precursor chemicals and cathode active materials space. We believe there's a strong business case to support investment into these areas that will secure a profitable investment for global investors, secure supply chains to make sure that there's a range of regional sourcing for these important materials, not to replace any particular supply chain, but rather to ensure that there's a clear alternative supply chain for processed materials. We have strong government support for this investment, and I acknowledge the work of the Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation through the battery industry strategy, representatives who are here today.